Hi guys, welcome to the channel of love. We are reading Success Through a Positive Mental Attitude by Napoleon Hill and W. Clement Stone. We're currently on chapter 2, You Can Change Your World, and I'm going to pick up from where we left off. You were born a champion. Have you ever thought about the battles you won before you were born? Stop and think about yourself, says Amran Scheinfeld, an expert on genetics. In all the history of the world, there was never anyone exactly like you, and in all the infinity of time to come, there will never be another. You are a very special person, and many struggles took place that had to be successfully concluded in order to produce you. Just think, tens of millions of sperm cells participated in a great battle, yet only one of them won, the one that made you. It was a great race to reach a single object, a precious egg containing a tiny nucleus. This goal, for which the sperms were competing, was smaller in size than the point of a needle, and each sperm was so small that it would have to be magnified thousands of times before it could be seen by the human eye. Yet it is on this microscopic level that your life's most decisive battle was fought. The head of each of the millions of sperms contained a precious cargo of 24 chromosomes, just as there were 24 in the tiny nucleus of the egg. Each chromosome was composed of jelly-like beads closely strung together. Each bead contained hundreds of genes to which scientists attribute all the factors of your heredity. The chromosomes in the sperm comprised all the hereditary material and tendencies contributed by your father and his ancestors. Those in the egg nucleus, the inheritable traits of your mother and her ancestors. Your mother and father themselves represented the culmination of over 2 billion years of victory in a battle to survive. And then one particular sperm, the fastest, the healthiest, the winner, united with the waiting egg to form one tiny living cell. The life of the most important living person had begun. You had become a champion over the most staggering odds you will ever have to face. For all practical purposes, you had inherited from the vast reservoir of the past all the potential abilities and powers you need to achieve your objectives. You were born to be a champion, and no matter what obstacles and difficulties lie in your way, they are not 1/10 so great as the ones that have already been overcome at the moment of your conception. Victory is built into every living person. Take the case of Irving Ben Cooper, who was one of America's most respected judges. But this was very far from the way young Ben Cooper thought of himself as a young boy. How a frightened boy developed PMA. Ben grew up in a near-slum neighborhood in St. Joseph, Missouri. His father was an immigrant tailor who earned little money. Many days there simply wasn't enough to eat. To heat their small home, Ben used to take a coal scuttle and walk down to the railroad tracks that ran nearby. There, he would pick up pieces of coal. It embarrassed Ben to have to do it. He'd often tried to sneak through the back streets so children from school wouldn't see him. But they often did. There was one gang of boys in particular who found great sport in ambushing Ben on his way home from the tracks and beating him up. They would scatter his coal all over the street and send him home with tears streaming from his eyes. Thus it was that Ben lived in a more or less permanent state of fear and self-despising. Something happened, as it always must, when we break the pattern of defeat. The victory within us does not assert itself until we are ready. Ben was inspired to positive action because he read a book. It was Robert Coverdale's Struggle by Horatio Alger. In it, Ben read the adventures of a youngster like himself who was faced with great odds, but who overcame these odds with the courage and moral strength which Ben wished to possess. The boy read every one of the Horatio Alger books he could borrow. As he read, he lived the part of the hero. All winter, he sat in the cold kitchen reading stories of courage and success, unconsciously absorbing a positive mental attitude. Some months after he had read his first Horatio Alger book, Ben Cooper was again making a trip down to the railroad tracks, and off in the distance he saw three figures dart behind a building. His first thought was to turn and run. Then he remembered the courage that he had admired in his book heroes, and instead of turning, his hands gripped the coal scuffle more tightly, and he marched straight ahead as if he were one of the Alger heroes. It was a brutal fight. The three boys jumped Ben all at the same time. His bucket dropped, and he started flailing his arms with a determination that caught the bullies by surprise. Ben's right hand smashed into the lips and nose of one of the boys, his left hand into his stomach. To Ben's surprise, the boy stopped fighting and turned and ran. Meanwhile, the other two boys were hitting and kicking him. Ben managed to push one boy away and knock the other down. He jumped on the second boy with his knees while he ploughed punch after punch into his stomach and jaw as if he were mad. Now there were just one boy left. This was the leader. He had jumped on top of Ben. Ben managed to pull him aside and get on his feet. For a second, the two boys stood and looked each other squarely in the eyes. And then, bit by bit, the leader stepped backwards. He too ran away. Perhaps it was righteous indignation, but Ben picked up a chunk of coal and threw it at the retreater. It wasn't until then that Ben realised that his nose was bleeding and that he had black and blue marks on his body from the punches and kicks he had received. It was worth it. It was a great day in Ben's life. In that moment, he overcame fear. Ben Cooper wasn't much stronger than he had been a year earlier. His attackers were no less tough. The difference came in Ben's own mental attitude. He had faced danger in spite of fear. He decided that no longer was he going to be pushed around by bullies. From now on, he himself was going to change his world. And of course, this is exactly what he did. Identify yourself with a successful image. The boy gave himself an identity. When he fought the 3 bullies on the street that day, he was not fighting as frightened, undernourished Ben Cooper. He was fighting as Robert Coverdale or any other of the plucky and daring heroes of Horatio Alger's books. Identifying oneself with a successful image can help break the habits of self-doubt and defeat with years of NMA set up within a personality. Another and equally important successful technique for changing your world is to identify yourself with an image that will inspire you to make the right decisions. It can be a slogan, a picture, or any other symbol that is meaningful to you. What will your picture be? The president of a Midwest concern operating internationally was visiting his San Francisco office. He noticed a large photograph of himself on the wall of the office of Dorothy Jones, a private secretary. "Dottie, that's a rather large picture for this size room, isn't it?" he asked. Dorothy responded, "When I have a problem, do you know what I do?" Without waiting for an answer, she demonstrated by placing her elbows on her desk, propping her head on the fingers of her folded hands, and looking up at the picture. "Boss, how the heck would you solve this problem?" she asked. Dottie's remarks seem rather humorous, yet the essence of her idea is startling. Perhaps you have a picture in your office, your home, or in your wallet that could give you the right answer to an important question in your life. Yours may be a picture of your mother, father, wife, husband, of Benjamin Franklin or Abraham Lincoln. It may be that of a saint. What will your picture say to you? There is one way to find out. When you are faced with a serious problem or decision, ask your picture a question. Listen for the answer. And we shall stop at that point. I will talk to you guys soon. So until then, take care, much love. Bye for now.